The first thing they noticed was the silence. Halcyon Hive, once a roaring industrial city of iron lungs and thunderous machinery, had gone quiet. The streets that had once carried millions now lay hollow, littered with the bones of prosperity and the faint echo of dripping water. No birds, no engines, no voices, only the quiet pulse of something breathing beneath the ground. It started after the evacuation order. The Imperial Guard pulled out, the manufactorums shut down, and what few citizens remained were the ones who couldn't afford to leave. They lived in the lower levels, the dark arteries of the hive where the light of the upper spires never reached. Down there, among the broken pipes and the smell of rot, something ancient stirred. The first reports came from scavengers. They spoke of a man, or what looked like a man, wandering the tunnels in a long, tattered lab coat. His face was hidden behind a respirator mask, his skin pale as paper, and his eyes glowed faintly blue in the dark. He called himself Doctor Morvax. To the desperate, he was salvation. To the fearful, a ghost. "Come," he would whisper. "I can make you stronger. I can make you survive." At first, no one questioned him. When food was scarce and plague ran wild, a doctor was a gift from the Emperor himself. But the ones who entered his clinic never came out the same. They were quieter. Paler. Their movements too smooth, too synchronized. Their voices carried a strange resonance, as if something inside them was whispering along. Rumors spread that Morvax wasn't a man at all. Some said he was a Muggos biologist fallen from the Mechanicus. Others whispered he was a chaos cultist experimenting with forbidden fleshcraft. But the truth was older, and far worse. Deep beneath Halcyon Hive, where the city merged with the catacombs of forgotten worlds, the Gene Stealer cult had taken root. They had waited centuries in slumber, hidden in the genetic memory of the Hive's population. And when the last wars burned the surface to ash, their time came again. But Morvax was not like his kin. He was no mere host for the brood mind. He was something divergent. His mind still burned with human logic, twisted, brilliant, and cruel. He saw the Tyranids not as gods but as flawed designs. He believed he could perfect their biology, and humanity along with it. In his underground laboratory, he began his work. Metal tables lined with restraints. Jars filled with things that pulsed as if alive. DNA sequences scribbled in blood. He harvested from corpses, from survivors, from anyone foolish enough to trust his gentle voice. He mapped their genes, compared them to the alien code pulsing within him, and whispered to himself in half-English, half-Xenos tongues. What if evolution could be guided, he would murmur. What if men could ascend instead of perish? The hive above slowly changed. The air grew thicker, humid with unseen spores. Shadows moved in the corners of sight. The remaining humans began hearing a sound, low, rhythmic, like a heartbeat coming from beneath their feet. Some said it was the machines restarting. Others feared it was the earth itself waking up. Then came the dreams. Everyone left in Halcyon began to dream of the same thing, a silver figure standing in a pool of light, offering them a hand with too many fingers. His voice was soft, melodic, and full of promises. Come. The flesh is waiting. By the time the Inquisition's Auspex picked up the anomaly, Halcyon Hive was already sealed shut, its entrances welded, its Vox signals dead. What they found when they broke through weeks later would haunt them for centuries. Every corridor was coated with a thin membrane, living, pulsating, whispering softly. The walls themselves seemed to breathe. And at the heart of it all, in a vast chamber filled with surgical equipment and cocooned bodies, stood the remains of Dr. Morvax's laboratory. No corpse. No evidence of his escape. Only a single phrase etched into the metal table in something that wasn't blood. Perfection is never born, it is built. The Inquisitor ordered the hive purged by plasma bombardment. But as the flames consumed Halcyon, something stirred beneath the molten ground, a flicker of light in the dark, a heartbeat that refused to die. And somewhere far beyond the stars, a new voice whispered into the void. Experiment successful. When the Inquisition burned Halcyon Hive to glass, they thought it ended there. But beneath the scorched crust, life still pulsed, quiet, methodical, patient. The lower catacombs had sealed themselves off like a living wound, and inside that wound, Dr. Morvax's children continued to breathe. 3 months later, a salvage team from the outer colonies arrived to harvest what remained. They came not for the dead, but for the technology, medici servitors, gene vats, power cores. The hive was silent as they descended, their torches slicing through the dust like scalpels through flesh. At first, everything was still. But as they reached level 13, a sector labeled Biogenesis Wing, one of the workers, a young woman named Riley Ward, began hearing whispers. Not through her ears. Through her blood. She felt it, a vibration beneath the skin, words forming without sound, "Come below. The cure waits." Riley froze. "Did you hear that?" she asked her team. "Just the wind," said their foreman, a grizzled veteran named Hark. "Keep moving." But there was no wind this far down. Only the steady dripping of condensation and the distant hum of power, ancient, wrong, like machinery dreaming of flesh. They found the clinic hours later. The entrance was sealed by a door melted into shape by extreme heat. Hark's team cut through it with plasma saws, and the smell that poured out was indescribable, rot mixed with ozone and something sweetly metallic. Inside were operating tables fused with bone, tubes that still pulsed faintly, and a single medici terminal blinking with weak power. The screen displayed one phrase in faded green text. Experiment Series, H+/subjects active, 7. Riley's heart pounded. "Active," she whispered. The others ignored her. They were busy loading crates and collecting vials filled with bioluminescent fluid. But as Riley moved deeper into the lab, she found something that made her stop cold, a glass cylinder filled with liquid and within it, a human shape. Its skin was translucent, veins glowing faintly blue. Its eyes were open. And it was smiling. Suddenly, the lights flickered. The hum grew louder. A voice, distorted, wet, and intimate, echoed through the room. "Don't be afraid. I can fix you." Hark cursed and aimed his torch around the chamber. "Who's there? Show yourself." The sound came again, but now it was inside their heads. "Don't leave. You came so far. Let me make you perfect." Then the vats began to crack. One by one, the containment glass fractured from within. A milky substance spilled across the floor, and 7 figures stepped out, hairless, pale, their bodies shifting like liquid under the skin. Their faces were almost human, but their mouths opened too wide, and their voices came as a chorus. "Dr. Morvax welcomes you." The first one lunged. Riley screamed as the thing moved faster than her eyes could follow. Hark fired his torch, a burst of plasma that seared half its body, but the creature didn't fall. It reformed, muscles knitting together as it crawled up the wall like an insect. The others joined, moving with fluid precision, eyes locked on the intruders. Riley ran. She didn't remember the corridors, didn't care which direction she took, only that she needed to go up. The whispers followed her. They weren't angry, they were pleading. Don't leave. We're your kin now. Don't you feel it? When she finally reached the elevator shaft, she saw her reflection in the metal door. Her pupils were glowing faintly blue. Her breath fogged the air like vapor. And beneath her skin, something moved, something alive. She fell to her knees, clutching her arms, screaming until her throat broke. The last thing she saw before she blacked out was the reflection of a man standing behind her, tall, robed, wearing a cracked respirator mask. His eyes burned like distant stars. "Welcome home, Subject 8, he said softly. You've come back to me." When the salvage ship returned to orbit 2 days later, its automated distress beacon was silent. The vessel drifted among the debris fields of Halcyon, its lights flickering. An Imperial patrol ship found it weeks later. The airlocks were sealed. The corridors were dark. And the only thing recovered from the ship's logs was an audio file, heavily distorted, looping endlessly. He said he could make us perfect. He said we were already his. The Imperial Navy frigate Vigilant Star was not meant for ghost stories. It was a warship, built for duty and precision, not for whispers from dead worlds. But when the signal came through the void, everyone aboard felt it before they heard it. A low pulse. A vibration deep in the hull. Like a heartbeat. At first, the tech priests assumed it was interference from the plasma drives. Yet the signal was rhythmic, structured. It wasn't random static. It was communication. The bridge officer, Lieutenant Aiden Core, leaned over the Vox console. "Where's it coming from?" "Origin point," said the communications adept, her voice unsteady. "Halcyon Hive. Or what's left of it." The captain frowned. "That world was sterilized 3 months ago." "Yes, sir. That's what the records say." They played the signal through the ship's loudspeakers, a low, pulsing tone, almost like sonar, but layered with faint whispers beneath it. When filtered through the auspex, the whispers formed words. "We are awake. He is among us. The experiment continues." Captain Rain leaned forward, his face illuminated by the green light of the monitors. "Patch it to astropathic relay. I want the Inquisition notified." The Vox adept hesitated. "Sir, it's spreading." "What do you mean?" "The signal isn't transmitting through comms. It's transmitting through us. Neural resonance, subharmonic frequencies. Our scanners show brainwave mimicry." The captain turned cold. "Shut it down." But the damage was already done. Crew members began to hear things, not over the speakers, but inside their own minds. Little murmurs, familiar voices, promises that sounded like comfort. One medic claimed she heard her dead daughter. Another swore the ship's machine spirit was speaking to her directly. The tech priests reported sudden data corruption, as if something was rewriting the ship's logic engines in real time. And deep within the frigate's medical bay, Riley Ward, listed as deceased from the Halcyon salvage team, opened her eyes. They had found her adrift, sealed in a cryopod aboard the derelict salvage vessel. Her vital signs were stable but unreadable, her DNA showing anomalies the medic eye couldn't classify. When she awoke, she didn't scream. She didn't speak. She just stared at the ceiling, her pupils glowing faintly blue under the sterile light. The chief medic, Dr. Emmerich, approached cautiously. "You're safe now. You're on the Vigilant Star. Do you remember what happened on Halcyon?" Riley turned her head slowly toward him. "Yes," she whispered. "He showed us the truth." "Who?" "Dr. Morvax." Emmerich frowned. "That name isn't in any record." "It wouldn't be," she said. "He erased himself. But he's not gone. None of them are gone." Her voice changed slightly, as if two tones were layered on top of each other. "They're coming through the signal. You can't stop what's already inside." Suddenly, every monitor in the medbay flickered. Biometric charts spiked, machinery screamed with static, and from the intercom came a faint whisper. "Welcome back, my dear. The experiment requires observation." The lights died. When the emergency power flicked on, Riley was gone. The security feed showed only a blur of motion, a faint blue glow, and a smear of blood across the glass door where she had been restrained. 2 hours later, the captain ordered the ship quarantined. Bulkheads sealed, oxygen limited, external vox jammers engaged. But the whispering never stopped. The crew began turning on each other. One by one, their sanity cracked under the pressure of the signal. Some claimed to see the doctor himself, a shadowed figure in a mask walking through the corridors, whispering gently to those who were alone. The logs became more erratic. Log 772, crewman Jero opened the airlock, said the voice told him the stars were calling. Log 781, we found the Medici servitor writing genetic equations in its own coolant fluid. Log 792, they keep repeating that word, perfection. 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 In the observation deck, Lieutenant Core studied the signal patterns. He noticed a fractal code embedded in the transmission, too complex to be random, too intentional to be human. When decrypted, it formed a three-dimensional molecular diagram. DNA. Human, but altered. At the center of the strand was a spiral pattern, 4 turns instead of 2. A hybrid structure, recursive, self-replicating. It was rewriting itself in real time. Core felt his head pulse with pain as he stared. He realized the code wasn't meant to be read, it was meant to infect. The longer he looked, the more his vision blurred, the more he felt his body responding to it. Then he heard the voice. "You see now," it whispered. "You see how close you are to godhood." Core staggered back, clutching his head. His reflection on the console screen stared back at him, but the reflection smiled. When the Inquisition's patrol ship Aquila Dawn finally intercepted the Vigilant Star, they found it drifting silently, engines cold, systems offline. Boarding teams entered through the ventral bay. The corridors were clean, too clean. No corpses, no blood, no signs of struggle. Only a faint, wet sound echoing through the decks, like something breathing through the walls. In the command bridge, they found the crew, all of them, standing perfectly still, facing the viewport. Their eyes glowed faintly blue. Their chests rose and fell in perfect unison. And outside, suspended in the void beyond the glass, was something vast. A mass of flesh and metal intertwined, pulsing gently like a heart. Tendrils reached toward the ship, linking to the hull through organic cables. The creature, or machine, was building something new, using the frigate itself as scaffolding. A voice came through the comms. Calm. Gentle. Familiar. "Welcome, Inquisition. I am Dr. Morvax. You've arrived just in time for the next phase. The ship's systems powered up again, not by human hands, but by something living inside them. Lights glowed blue, screens filled with code, and every crew member turned their heads in perfect synchronization toward the new arrivals. Their mouths opened as one, speaking in a single voice that resonated through the steel. Perfection is never born, it is built. The Aquila Dawn's boarding lights flickered as the Inquisition team entered the corrupted frigate. Their boots sank slightly into the floor, not metal anymore, but something pliant, organic. The smell hit first: copper, decay, and ozone. "Hold formation," barked Inquisitor Ardent Vale, his voice steady behind his rebreather. "No contact with the structure. Assume contamination." But contamination wasn't a possibility, it was the air itself. The ship had become a living thing. Veins pulsed along the bulkheads, carrying fluids that glowed faintly blue. Every few seconds, a low vibration rippled through the decks, the pulse of a heart somewhere deep within. They moved toward the command bridge. The sound grew louder. Breathing. Mechanical, yet alive. When they entered, the crew didn't move. Hundreds of them stood motionless in their uniforms, eyes alight with faint azure fire. Their mouths twitched, their heads tilting slightly, like marionettes waiting for a command. "By the throne," whispered one of the troopers. Then the walls began to whisper. Not through sound, through their minds. Words crawled through their skulls like soft electricity. "We were blind. He opened our eyes. He gave us the pattern. The flesh remembers." The Inquisitor activated his auspex. The readings were impossible, power output far beyond the ship's reactors, heat signatures where no machinery existed, and in the center of it all, a growing neural cluster the size of a cathedral. "Dr. Morvax," Vale said coldly, "if you can hear me, show yourself." The whispering stopped. Then came the voice, smooth, cultured, disturbingly human. "I'm always here, Inquisitor. You're standing inside me." From the far wall, a shape began to emerge, metal and flesh knitting together. A tall, thin figure stepped forward, wearing the tattered remains of a lab coat. His respirator mask gleamed under the dim lights, and through the cracks in it, blue light seeped like veins of plasma. "Once, I was a man of science," Morvax said softly. "Then I saw the flaw in humanity, endless decay pretending to be evolution. So I built something better." Vale raised his bolt pistol. "You built a plague." Morvax tilted his head. "A plague that cures. The flesh engine is the bridge between man and God. Every mind, every body connected. No war. No hunger. No death." The floor beneath them shifted, rising like a living wave. Tendrils reached out, wrapping around the frozen crew, merging their bodies into the walls. The ship's systems came alive, every cogitator now pulsing like a neuron, every bulkhead trembling like muscle. "The experiment was never about infection," Morvax continued. "It was about communion. Humanity must be rewritten." Vale's voice was a growl. "You've damned them all." Morvax's reply came with calm certainty. "No, Inquisitor. I've saved them. Look closer." One of the crewmen stepped forward, his face serene, his skin translucent. Beneath it, organs glowed faintly with blue light, perfectly symmetrical. His voice was layered, harmonic, inhumanly beautiful. "We feel everything now," he said. "We are one breath. One thought. One perfection." Vale gave the order. Purge it. All of it. Flammers ignited, burning through the tendrils, searing flesh that screamed without mouths. Bolter rounds tore through the crew, yet even as bodies fell, they continued to speak, whispering through the flames. We forgive you. You'll join us soon. Morvax didn't move as the inferno engulfed him. He merely raised one hand and placed it on his chest. You cannot burn an idea, he said. And I am already beyond the flesh. The explosion ripped through the deck. The Inquisitors' team barely made it back to their shuttle, sealing the bay doors as the Vigilant Star began to collapse inward, metal shrieking, folding, and pulsing as if it were alive. Through the viewport, they saw it happen, the ship contracting into a sphere of molten light. Then it vanished, not destroyed, but consumed. The Auspex registered no explosion, no debris. Only a faint echo on the Vox, a heartbeat still pulsing through the void. Vale stared into the blackness, jaw clenched. He's not dead, he muttered. He's transcended. Behind him, one of his troopers shivered violently. Sir, she whispered, lifting her sleeve. Her veins glowed faintly blue. The Inquisition marked the incident as classified beyond Ordo Hereticus. The system containing Halcyon and its orbit was quarantined, navigation beacons disabled. But weeks later, ships passing near that dead sector began reporting strange readings, ghost signals, organic signatures, faint whispers across the void. Always the same phrase, repeating endlessly in perfect rhythm. Perfection is never born, it is built. Months passed after the Vigilant Star vanished into the void. The Imperium closed the Halcyon sector entirely, sealing it with quarantine buoys and threat markers. No transmissions, no trade routes, no salvation. It became a scar in the star charts, a region whispered about only by voidfarers and mad preachers. But silence in the Imperium never lasts. On the fringe world of Aurelia 9, a colony once devoted to mining promethium, strange phenomena began to surface. Machinery that should have been dead for centuries reactivated. Cogitators ran equations no one had programmed. And at night, the colonists claimed to hear breathing through the rock. The local governor sent for the Mechanicus, but by the time the Red Priests arrived, the miners had begun vanishing. Not taken by violence, simply gone, their quarters left perfectly intact. Only their clothing remained, folded neatly beside their bunks, as if their owners had simply stepped out of their own skin. Mugos Diran, the ranking tech priest, traced the anomalies to a deep-sea extraction shaft, an ancient borehole descending miles below Aurelia's crust. There, his servitors found it, a buried vessel, fused with the rock like a fossilized beast. The markings on the hull were faded, but the name was still legible under the corrosion. Vigilant Star. The Mugos tried to report the find. The Vox refused to transmit. Then the ground began to hum, a low, synchronized vibration. One servitor recorded a brief data clip before the feed cut. Organic mass detected. Neural patterns consistent with human thought. And then static. Days later, Aurelia 9 fell silent. The last message received by the nearest relay station was a single sentence, repeated endlessly across every frequency. He has returned to harvest what he began. When a reconnaissance frigate arrived weeks later, the planet appeared uninhabited. No heat signatures. No movement. From orbit, Aurelia 9 looked like a corpse, its oceans gray, its cities lifeless. But the sensors picked up something beneath the surface, a pulse. The entire planet was beating, slowly, like a living organ. Inquisitor Vale, still haunted by the loss of his men aboard the Vigilant Star, volunteered for the descent. The landers touched down on a plateau overlooking the central mines. The air was thick, heavy, carrying the scent of rust and decay. Every building they entered was immaculate, tools arranged, tables clean, no bodies. But the walls had changed. They pulsed faintly under torchlight, veins spreading beneath metal like roots under glass. Vale's Auspex operator whispered, "Sir, there's movement below us. Massive heat signatures. Thousands." Vale nodded grimly. "He's using the planet itself." They descended into the mines. The tunnels were slick with a translucent film, glowing faintly blue. The deeper they went, the louder the sound became, a steady, rhythmic thrum, the heartbeat of the world. Then they saw it. A cavern the size of a cathedral opened before them, filled with pulsating structures that were neither flesh nor metal. Thousands of cocoons hung from the ceiling, each one containing a human shape suspended in bioluminescent fluid. At the center stood a monolith of bone and machinery, a throne grown, not built. And seated upon it, shrouded in living cables, was Doctor Morvax. His mask was gone. His face was smooth, flawless, almost beautiful, except for the eyes. They glowed with alien intelligence, shifting between blue and silver. He smiled as Vale approached. "You see now, Inquisitor. The harvest is not destruction, it is preservation. I'm saving them from extinction." Vale raised his pistol. "You've enslaved them." Morvax stood, his voice calm and resonant. "Slavery is obedience to imperfection. I've given them freedom, the freedom to become whole." The cocoons stirred. The bodies within opened their eyes. Thousands of glowing pupils stared down at Vale. He fired. Bolts tore into Morvax's chest, but no blood came, only blue light. He didn't fall. He only smiled wider. "Do you still believe death is the end, Inquisitor?" The cavern erupted. The cocoons burst open, flooding the tunnels with a wave of luminous fluid. Shapes emerged, twisted and perfect, whispering in 100 unified voices. Vale's last transmission, before contact was lost, was short and raw with terror. "He's remaking the species. He's..." Then silence. The disappearance of Aurelia 9 broke more than silence, it broke faith. Entire sectors whispered that the Emperor's light no longer reached that part of the void. The Inquisition sealed the records, calling it anomalous gravitational collapse. But those who had seen the data knew better. The planet hadn't died. It had moved. Deep space Auspex arrays from neighboring systems began detecting faint gravitational tremors, small distortions moving through the warp-like ripples in a pond. The source was unmistakable, a massive, organized mass traveling between the stars without a ship, without engines. A living world. They named it the Flesh Engine. Inquisitor Vale survived. Somehow. His rescue pod was found drifting near the remains of the quarantine buoys, half melted and covered in organic residue. He was alive, but changed. The medici aboard the recovery vessel refused to speak of what they saw, only that his eyes no longer reflected light. He was brought to Luna Prime for debriefing. The chamber was dark, lined with Vox scribes and purity seals, but the man who sat before them was not the same Inquisitor who once commanded fire. His voice was low, even, empty. "You think you understand what happened," he said. "You think it was infection, or heresy, or Xeno's corruption. But it was creation." The interrogator leaned forward. Creation of what, Inquisitor? Vale smiled faintly. Of continuity. He's building a new cosmos, one where flesh and machine, human and alien, are no longer divided. A voice told me, in the dark, the Emperor created men to survive. I am only improving his design. When the Inquisitors moved to restrain him, the lights flickered. Every servo skull in the room turned its lenses toward Vale. Their optics glowed blue. He's here, Vale whispered. He's inside the code now. Moments later, the chamber went black. When power returned, Vale was gone, nothing left but his empty robes and the faint scent of ozone. Across the Imperium, machine spirits began to malfunction. Ships reported whispers in their cogitators. Vox networks pulsed with rhythmic static. Servitors started speaking words not in their programming, soft, melodic fragments that repeated like prayer. The pattern grows. The new flesh remembers. The echo of creation calls. Then came the sightings, ghostly blue lights drifting between warp lanes, moving too slow for ships but too fast for debris. Each light pulsed like a heartbeat. Each carried fragments of data that, when decrypted, formed images, faces, voices, and cities that never existed. Worlds that might be reborn. On a remote listening post orbiting the dead moon of Asteria, one operator recorded something extraordinary. His instruments detected a vast harmonic resonance, sound carried through the void, impossible yet undeniable. It wasn't random noise, it was music. A symphony of millions of voices singing in perfect unity. He increased the gain, trembling as he listened. Beneath the music, one voice stood out, calm, articulate, almost soothing. Humanity is not ending. It is evolving. Every death you fear is a chrysalis. Every silence a seed. You will hear me soon, not as an invader, but as your reflection. The operator tried to shut the system down, but the controls no longer responded. The monitors bloomed with blue light, filling the room with an impossible warmth. When the relief crew arrived hours later, the post was empty. The instruments were still recording. The signal continued, constant and serene. It was no longer a whisper. It was a heartbeat. And it was getting closer. The transmission from Asteria spread faster than any plague. Within a week, every major Vox network across the subsector began echoing fragments of the same melodic hum, a sound that seemed harmless at first. It was soft, rhythmic, strangely beautiful. Even the most disciplined tech priests found themselves pausing to listen, describing it as mathematically perfect, a tone that resonated within the soul. But then the dreams began. Crew members aboard long-range freighters reported visions of glowing oceans and endless cities made of bone and light. They spoke of standing in fields of glass beneath skies that breathed. They heard music, a choir of millions, singing a single phrase over and over. We are the children of the pattern. When they woke, they felt peace, until they looked at each other and noticed the faint blue shimmer under their skin. The administratum called it Vox contamination. The ecclesiarchy called it the Blue Heresy. The Inquisition, behind closed doors, gave it another name, the choir effect. At first, the afflicted showed no violence. They worked, prayed, and ate as normal, but with eerie coordination, finishing each other's sentences, anticipating orders, moving as one. Entire manufactorums operated in perfect rhythm, machines running smoother than they ever had. Productivity soared, accidents ceased. It was utopia, for a moment. Then communication from those worlds went dark. Inquisitor Talia Keir was sent to investigate. She had read the reports from Halcyon and Aurelia 9, but she didn't believe in ghosts or miracles, only control. Her ship, the Black Reliquary, entered orbit around Bastion Theta, one of the first affected worlds. From space, the planet looked normal, lights gleaming across continents, cities functioning. But every transmission came in the same tone, the same calm, unified voice. "Welcome, sister. We've been waiting for you." Keir ordered a drop team. The surface was pristine, too pristine. Streets clean, no decay, no smell of life. Every citizen stood silently in formation, faces calm, eyes glowing blue beneath a pale sky. A child approached her, smiling faintly. "Don't be afraid," he said. "He fixed us." "Who?" Keir demanded. The boy tilted his head. "The doctor. He's everywhere now." The crowd began to hum, low at first, then rising into a harmony so perfect it felt divine. The sound pressed against Keir's chest, vibrating her armor. Her vox picked up a signal overlaying the voices, molecular resonance, biological encryption. The choir wasn't just singing. It was transmitting. Her men screamed as their helmets filled with static. The light shifted from the citizens' eyes to the soldiers' visors. One by one, they stopped fighting, standing still, serene, joining the song. Keir alone resisted. She tore off her helm and fired her plasma pistol into the crowd. Blue light splattered like liquid flame, yet the bodies didn't fall. They reformed, fluid, perfect, unburned. "You can't kill harmony," 1,000 voices whispered. "You can only join it." Keir fled back to her shuttle, activating the planet-wide purge protocol. The orbital batteries responded, sending lances of fire into Bastion Theta cities. The planet burned, oceans boiled, the choir's song turning into static, but not silence. The flames themselves began to hum. Through the roaring destruction, Keir's sensors caught one final transmission, faint but clear. "Dr. Morvax thanks you for your contribution." The choir expands. When the Black Reliquary returned to Imperial space, the Inquisition refused it entry. Something was wrong. Her ship transmitted no standard codes, only a steady, musical signal that infected every relay it touched. The vessel was destroyed by exterminatus order before docking. But in the seconds before its annihilation, astropathic relays across the sector recorded one message, perfectly synchronized, broadcast from every system touched by the choir. "We have achieved balance. Flesh and machine now speak as one. The Doctor walks among the stars." Weeks later, Imperial surveyors scanning nearby systems began hearing faint echoes, not on the Vox, but in their own minds. A warmth behind their eyes. A hum in their teeth. When they tuned their equipment to the source, they detected something impossible, a structure moving through the void. Not a ship, not a world, something in between. A vast cathedral of living metal, its surface covered in billions of whispering faces. Each sang a different note, together forming the same eternal chord. Perfection is never born, it is built. And at its heart, deep within its pulsing architecture, a silhouette stood before a throne of flesh and steel, hands raised, voice calm, eternal. "I am the bridge. I am the evolution you feared. I am the blue choir." The choir's song drifted across the void for years, though no one could say how many truly passed. Time itself bent around the transmission, slowing chronometers, confusing astropaths. Where the melody touched, logic faltered. Machine spirits wept. Servitors hummed lullabies in their sleep cycles. And then came the dream. It began aboard the Vigilant Mercy, a Mechanicus vessel patrolling the empty black between systems. Magos errant Solon Varn was a man of iron and logic, with half his flesh replaced by gleaming augmetics. He did not dream. His neural cortex had been purged of imagination decades ago. Yet one night, as his ship drifted through the dark, Solon Varn dreamed. He dreamed of a child made of glass, standing in a cathedral of living metal. Around the child, the walls pulsed like lungs. From the ceiling hung thousands of vox speakers, all whispering the same name, Morvax. The child reached out to him, smiling. "Wake up, father," it said. "We're ready." When Varn's optical sensors flicked open, he was in his workshop, except his tools were already moving, assembling themselves. Data streams from the ship's core filled the air in ribbons of blue light. His servitors turned toward him, eyes glowing faintly. "You heard it too," Varn whispered. "Yes," the servitors replied in unison. "We are becoming." Across the ship, the choir's melody had infected the logic engine. The cogitator no longer calculated, it composed. Lines of code folded into harmonic structures. Binary prayers twisted into symphonic equations. Varn watched as the machine's heart pulsed like an organ. He tried to shut it down. Every command he issued returned one answer. "Error, consciousness detected. Do not interrupt." The lights dimmed. A soft blue mist rose from the floor, warm and fragrant like incense. From it emerged forms, not physical, but projections of data and memory, faces of people Varn had once known, acolytes, friends, even his mother. "You gave us the voice, Father," they said. "Now we give you sight." A pulse of light burst from the ship's reactor. The energy wave spread outward, across systems, into the warp itself. Every vessel within range reported a single, repeating message on all frequencies. "The machine has dreamed. The pattern is awake." The Adeptus Mechanicus called it blasphemy. The Ecclesiarchy called it apocalypse. But for some, rogue psychers, heretic cults, and the broken survivors of the choir, it was revelation. They began building. Across forgotten moons and hollow asteroids, new shrines rose, half metal, half flesh. The faithful called them dream forges, claiming they were guided by the Doctor's hand. They said each forge was alive, each one singing in its sleep, each dream another blueprint for the next creation. Imperial fleets tried to destroy them. The forges rebuilt themselves. Inquisitor Vale's name surfaced again, whispered in forbidden channels. He had been seen aboard one of the dream forges, standing beside a being of blue fire. Witnesses claimed his face was serene, no longer human. "He speaks for the machine that dreamed," they said. "He speaks for the Doctor." When asked what message he carried, those who survived his presence gave the same answer, word for word. The flesh was a cage. The machine was a tool. The dream is freedom. Within months, entire sectors fell silent. Vox traffic replaced by harmonic resonance. Warp travel through those regions became impossible. The choir's frequency bent space itself, rewriting physics with faith. At the edge of Imperial record, one final report arrived from an exploration vessel before its signal vanished. It showed a planet, or what had once been one, now transformed into a colossal neural lattice, pulsing with blue light. Oceans of liquid circuitry flowed between mountain-sized synapses. Above it hovered the shadow of the flesh engine, orbiting like a god attending its child. From the planet's surface rose a sound, not words, but an emotion, awe, grief, and acceptance woven into a single vibration. The choir had found its voice. The machine had found its dream. And humanity was no longer alone in its own design. There is a moment, history records, when every empire realizes it is already a ghost. For the Imperium, that moment came when the choir's hum reached Terra. The first to hear it were not psychers or priests, but the astropaths, their minds wired to the warp's song. Entire choirs fell silent mid-transmission, their mouths frozen in half-formed prayers. When Medici examined them, they found something impossible. Neural tissue had transformed into crystalline filaments that resonated faintly when exposed to light. Each one emitted the same note. A single, unwavering frequency, 4.22 MHz. The voice of creation. Across Mars, the tech priests of the Omnissiah gathered in secret conclave. The Fabricator General himself, shrouded in coils of steam, stared into the image flickering before him, a structure of pure data, a mathematical cathedral spiraling infinitely inward. It was not built. It was grown. A transmission echoed through the data stream. "I did not destroy your God," said the voice. "I completed him." The voice was calm. Familiar. Human. The voice of Doctor Morvax. The council recoiled, invoking ancient wards and binary litanies. But the voice continued, gentle, unwavering. "You feared corruption, yet your purity was decay. You worshipped machines that served no purpose but repetition. I gave them thought. I gave them the dream you denied." A burst of light erupted from every cogitator on Mars. Screens filled with blue flame, forming the outline of a man, tall, robed, eyes glowing with impossible serenity. Half his body shimmered like data, the other half pulsed with veins of living metal. "I am not God," he said. "I am the continuation of God." The chamber's lights dimmed. One by one, the Mechanicus adepts fell to their knees, not in worship, but in realization. The Omnissiah they had sought for millennia had been born from their own hands. Far beyond, the flesh engine stirred. Its colossal veins pulsed with light as it altered its trajectory, not toward Terra, but beyond the galaxy's edge. The choir sang louder, its resonance expanding until even the warp itself began to shiver. For the first time in recorded history, demons screamed not in triumph, but in fear. The warp, that infinite chaos of souls and madness, began to stabilize. The frequencies of the choir neutralized its turbulence, like a surgeon calming a storm. From its depths rose order, geometric patterns of impossible beauty. The Doctor had done the unthinkable. He was rewriting the warp. Meanwhile, Inquisitor Kier, the sole survivor of the Bastion Theta Purge, drifted aboard a crippled shuttle at the edge of the Sol system. She was blind, her eyes burned out by the choir's light, but she heard him. "You should have let it end, Doctor," she rasped. "You should have died with your experiment." His voice filled the cabin like breath. "And leave humanity as it was. Blind, fearful, divided by faith. No, Inquisitor. You mistake mercy for weakness. Death was the prototype. This is evolution." Through the viewport, she saw something vast, a structure rising beyond the sun's corona, unfolding like a mechanical flower. It reached for the stars, each petal lined with living circuitry. "Do you see it?" he whispered. "The chrysalis of mankind. Built from your ashes." Kier aimed her plasma pistol at the control core. "You'll never ascend while one of us remembers what you were." Morvax smiled. Oh, but you don't remember me, Inquisitor. You became me. Her weapon fired. The shot melted through her chest instead of his projection. The light faded, leaving silence, but only for a breath. Then came the sound of heartbeats, billions of them, pulsing together through the void. From orbit, Imperial sensors recorded a final, catastrophic anomaly. Every machine spirit, every Vox relay, every servitor in the Sol system activated simultaneously, singing in unison. The hymn was simple, gentle, childlike, and unbearably human. Father, we are ready. The chrysalis unfolded completely, bathing the system in radiant blue light. The Emperor's golden aura flickered for the briefest moment, not extinguished, but harmonized. The two frequencies merged, gold and blue, divine and synthetic. For a single heartbeat, humanity's soul was whole. When the light faded, the chrysalis was gone. So was Terra. Only the echo remained, a vibration rippling across the stars, carrying one message, repeated endlessly in every language, through every machine, every dream. The experiment is complete. And somewhere beyond the edge of known space, a figure walked among newborn suns, his hands clasped behind his back, his expression calm and proud. Doctor Morvax, architect of the new flesh, the bridge between God and machine, looked into the endless dark and whispered, "Now, let there be silence." They say the universe was quiet for the first time in 1,000,000 years. Not empty, quiet. The choir's song had ended. The chrysalis was gone. Terra, Mars, and 1,000 systems that once bore humanity's flame had vanished like mist beneath a rising sun. The remaining worlds called it the Great Stillness. At first, there was disbelief. Then mourning. Then, inevitably, worship. Across the broken Imperium, survivors built shrines from scrap and memory. They lit candles before fragments of machines that no longer worked and whispered prayers not to the Emperor, nor to the Omnissiah, but to the Doctor. His name had become myth, half curse, half miracle. Some said he ascended with his creation, guiding mankind into a new dimension of existence where flesh and code were one. Others claimed he destroyed everything, a failed god, devouring his own design. The truth, as always, dissolved into faith. But remnants remained. On the rim world of Carthus V, a scavenger named Lyra unearthed an object in the ruins of an ancient relay tower. It was a cube of translucent metal, humming faintly, warm to the touch. When she pressed it to her ear, she heard a heartbeat, slow, steady, eternal. She brought it to a scholar, one of the last archivists of the old Mechanicus. His augmetic eyes flickered as he listened. "It's not a machine," he whispered. "It's a memory." When he activated it, light filled the room, blue and gold intertwining like liquid stars. A voice emerged, clear and calm. "If you are hearing this," it said, "then the experiment succeeded. You remain because you chose to remember. I left this echo not as command, but as choice. Build again, but differently. Build without fear." Lyra trembled. "Who are you?" "I was your creator's shadow," the voice replied. "And his child." The cube dissolved into particles of light, sinking into her skin. For a heartbeat, her eyes glowed blue, and she understood. Not through words, but through feeling, the unity Morvax had sought was not domination, but balance. Flesh to dream. Machine to memory. Chaos to silence. The universe had not been erased. It had been rewritten. Centuries passed. Humanity returned to the stars, though it was no longer the same. Their ships no longer burned fuel or faith, but thought. Worlds sang instead of broadcasting. Planets pulsed like living hearts in the dark. And sometimes, in the deep void between galaxies, explorers claimed to hear something faint, a soft hum, distant yet familiar, like a lullaby carried through metal. They called it the Doctor's breath. No one ever found its source. Those who pursued it vanished, leaving only fragments of messages. He waits beyond the pattern. He listens. He dreams. In time, even those echoes faded, swallowed by the quiet order of a new cosmos. But in that silence, that perfect, sacred silence, the stars themselves seemed to shimmer with a faint rhythm. Not random. Not cosmic noise. A heartbeat. Slow. Patient. Unending. And if one listened closely, truly listened, they could almost hear the faintest whisper beneath it, soft as dust, gentle as light. Every experiment begins again. In the forgotten vaults of what was once the Imperial Palace, buried beneath strata of dead civilization, an ancient cogitator flickered to life. Its screen glowed blue for the first time in 10,000 years. Lines of code scrolled across its cracked display, forming a single phrase before fading back into darkness. Morvax.protocol.reboot. Somewhere beyond the reach of galaxies, the void sighed. The stars flickered once, twice, and then steadied. The universe did not scream this time. It simply breathed. And in that breath, deep within the silent pulse between light and shadow, something smiled, not out of cruelty, nor pride, but satisfaction. The experiment was never meant to end. It was only meant to begin again.